Private credit firms say they're insulated from risk because they don't depend on depositors. And firms are now pushing to bring these assets to the public via ETFs and even 401ks. Do you think that this type of investment can be made more broadly available?
So one of the great things about the industry is, and one of the things I've loved about it is, it's constantly reinventing itself and constantly evolving in terms of what is the most efficient way to provide capital to an enterprise. And that's why private capital has grown. Now, more people want access to being providers of that capital. And I think this is, again, just a part of the natural evolution of how people access capital. We haven't opened up that marketplace in a way that gives a broader community access beyond the wealthy. And obviously it should happen. It's actually happening indirectly. Retired teachers all over America participate in plans for which Carlyle is helping those plans manage their assets.
Do you worry that maybe this industry could fly away a little bit if there isn't a bigger set of eyes on it?
Do I think we could have a bad credit cycle? Sure. The question is it systemic in that it actually triggers a broader crisis? Banks have failed, but we haven't seen credit funds fail.
Under Schwartz, Carlyle has continued its move into private credit, which now makes up over 40% of its business. And since 2023, its assets under management have increased 21%. You have this private equity business, but you're now pivoting the company more and more to these different areas. You've been in credit for a while. What do you think your mark is going to be as the CEO?
The trend of private capital, as significant as we think it is, if you look back again to 2000 to today, it's early days for private capital. If you think about the big trends, demand for infrastructure, demand for energy, the demand for defense, and really what's happening geopolitically, the demand for private capital will only increase. I'm also generally an optimist. So I think industries will grow, investment will grow, and private capital will just grow to be a provider of capital. The world's kind of an unpredictable place, but there's a huge amount of opportunity, and this is a really unique time to be in private capital.
We just interviewed the CEO of Carlyle, Harvey Schwartz. In a lot of ways, I think his story tells a lot about the direction of the industry. He has one of the more human stories I have exchange and into private markets.
What's happening in our business now, private markets, is pretty extraordinary in terms of the trajectory.
Schwartz is now hoping to take the storied firm to the bleeding edge of financial innovation. Not everyone thinks he can do it, but he's used to long odds.
Where have you brought me?
Welcome to Morristown.
When was the last time you were back here?
Oh, I don't know, a very long time. I think maybe I came once since 1982.
You're giving me nightmares already.
Oh, there's no nightmares to have.
I was not cool in high school. We kind of did some yearbook searching for you to see what
I was the most unsuccessful wrestler ever.
Did you do any clubs or anything?
No. I was a tragically bad high school student.
Schwartz had a tough childhood. His mother was bipolar, and his father was diagnosed with schizophrenia. They both had multiple suicide attempts. Your parents had a really large impact on you. Your parents had a really large impact on you. I've only really heard you talk about your experience growing up recently.
Yeah, so I didn't talk about it for a long time because at a different time, there's a real horrible stigma around mental illness that exists today, which is tragic. But most people won't talk about mental illness. It's too uncomfortable. It's not accepted in society. Back then, there was no acceptability. I mean, the rule in a family was you could not talk about the family. And then over time, really over the past 10 years, I realized that if I talked about it in open forums, it seemed to somehow be comforting to people that there was even a willingness to have a discussion about it.
The way you describe it now, you say, my mother was diagnosed as what is now known bipolar. Was it diagnosed then? And you were so young.
Well...
Did you know what was going on?
No, it was just how my sister and I lived. And it was really sort of event to event. So hospitalization to hospitalization. I celebrated, I don't know, my 11th birthday. I celebrated many birthdays in hospitals.
His mother passed away from cancer when he was 14 years old, leaving him in the care of his father.
My father in particular got really consumed by his illness. And unfortunately, he developed a delusion, which was he thought everyone could read his mind. So he wouldn't communicate. So you and I have probably talked more than my father and I ever did in my entire life. So he wouldn't communicate. I sort of did my own thing. I became a bit of a feral kid. Senior year was really challenging for me. I had missed some extraordinary number of days by Christmas, I remember. Something like 26 or 27 days of not coming to school. And then as spring was coming around, I realized there was a very good chance I wouldn't graduate. So I came up with this idea that when I turned 18, which was March of '82, I could sign myself out of high school. And I called up a friend in California, and I said, hey, I have this plan. I'm not gonna get out of high school if I don't do this. I said, if I sign myself out, if your parents will take me in, I'll try and graduate in California. And they said yes. And so I turned 18, I signed myself out, and I vividly remember back then, I don't know if it still exists today, but you had to get with like an interim report card before you go to the next school. And so I went to all the teachers. Every teacher gave me an F. It was really,
you
really...
were very close to failing out of high school.
I think that is failing out.
Right.
So I got all Fs. The math teacher did say to me something like, I remember when he gave me my F, he said, I don't know, Harvey, I have to give you an F, but I don't know, I think there's maybe like one day you could be like head of the math department at MIT. So he must have seen something. I definitively was not feeling anything positive. It was humiliating and kind of really reinforced the feeling that it was difficult to achieve anything. But I went to California, and all of a sudden I was wrapped in with this loving family. They were extraordinary to me. I remember when I first showed up, Rick's mom said to me, do you drink? And I said, yes. And she said, well, if you drink and you're out, you don't come back to this house. And in a really weird way at the time, it actually felt quite good. I was like, oh, that's a rule. I haven't had any rules in many, many years. My mom had passed away. There was a sense of parental discipline. My friend was an amazing student. He was best student, best athlete, best looking. I was worst student, worst athlete, not good looking at all. But he was a super good student. We would go home and study every day. I'd never done that. And I got all A's in California. And I actually graduated in California. So it was a pretty unusual ride.
He returned to New Jersey, started working hourly jobs and practicing martial arts at a local gym.
So you almost didn't get into college.
I didn't get into college.
Schwartz applied to the only college he could afford.
Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, with a reputation over 2 centuries old as a top-flight academic institution.
And he got rejected.
There was a woman that used to come to this gym, and she had gone to Rutgers, and she kept asking me, did you get in, did you get in, did you get in? And I said, no, I didn't get in. And she was so outraged, she called Rutgers and demanded that they review my application. They told her, if I write an essay and I come down for an interview, they would reconsider, and with Linda's help, I got in.
So you call her your angel these days?
She's one of my angels, yeah. It's almost impossible to believe that Rutgers denied my application, gets a random call from an alumni, and then they changed the decision, and it changed my whole life.
I think a lot of people from the outside will look at the world of Wall Street and say, you probably had to go to a Tier 1 college.
Are you implying Rutgers is not Tier 1?
Well, you know,
Rutgers is an amazing university, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, this idea that if you didn't kind of come from the top, you can't get to the highest ranks in finance. And I think that your story goes against that in a lot of ways.
Rutgers framed me. I learned that I loved to learn when I was there. I immediately loved economics, and that kind of pushed me on my path. But there was no defined path. It was a very random walk.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Michael McKee in Victor, Idaho, and this is Bloomberg.
The big name brand money managers who run like the index funds and mutual funds
Vanguard, BlackRock,
that a lot of us have in our retirement. And then off to the side, there were these private markets companies like Apollo, Blackstone, Carlyle that were kind of doing something that I think to most people seemed like a little bit boutique. They were doing mostly what is called like leverage buyouts, things like that. They were kind of the pirate ships of finance. They're moving closer and closer to the center of finance now because they're not only doing the leverage buyouts, they're actually becoming really important lenders in this economy. They're all in a relatively small ecosystem of deal makers.
A small ecosystem, perhaps, but a mighty one. Shrinking public markets have spurred private markets into a $13 trillion powerhouse. And private credit has become one of Wall Street's hottest tickets. Quiet deals, big yields, billions flowing in. The industry tripled in value from $517 billion in assets in 2015 to over $1.7 trillion in 2025. And it's expected to increase by 50% in the next 4 years. But behind the scenes, regulators and investors worry about the risks.
There are still areas where record funds are being raised, private credit being one of them.
Going into 2024, it got so big that people are even worried about systemic risks.
One of the biggest risks is interest rates creeping up. The higher the interest rates, the more strain on borrowers' balance sheets.
It is almost for sure, recession or no recession, that the default rate is going to rise.
These loans are hard to value, and if the economy stumbles, defaults could hit fast and hard.
You always worry about the financial system. When things move away from banking, are you creating a new shadow banking system where a lot of the activities that can cause problems in banking are starting to happen outside the system? We're a little worried about the economy right now. And I think these are going to be exquisitely sensitive to the economy and economic growth. So if you're worried about a recession, I think it would be normal to have some questions about how these investments are going to do.
Especially because we haven't really seen it at this scale.
When things get bigger and then they become more consolidated, you always wonder what's going on under the hood there. Banks are lenders to a lot of these private credit firms. It all comes together. And not to be a downer, but you often find out more about the connections when things go wrong.
And have we seen a major accident?
We have not seen a big accident yet in private credit.
Private credit firms say they're insulated